In his new book, Creating the Qur'an, Dr. Stephen Shoemaker reveals the truth that early Christian sources show that the final composition of the Qur'an was produced by Al-Hajjaj. And I keep showing you this book because I want all of you to investigate and hopefully even get this book, which is Creating the Qur'an by Stephen Shoemaker, and that's why we call this particular series Creating the Qur'an. We want to be respectful, of course, of the title, since we are using this book as the main object of our series. However, periodically we are going to interject our own findings, thoughts, research, commentaries, and so on and so forth. And today is no exception to that, of course. We have been, for the last couple of episodes, showing evidence that there is something that Dr. J coined and called it, basically from his readings, I should say, of the book. He called it Abdul Malik al-Hajjaj paradigm. And we've been also showing evidence from early Christians. When we say early, we're talking kind of like 8th century sometimes, or before or after, that supports the idea that the evolution and the rise of the Quran happened at a later time, or at least it wasn't standardized at the time of Uthman, meaning there was still fluidity in the production of the Quran and standardizing that text itself. Today, we will be taking a look at what is called the Dialogue of Abraham, Tiberious, and the Emir. And with me here, of course, to discuss all of this is Dr. J. Smith. Dr. J, welcome back.
Thank you. This has been excellent, this whole series. And we're looking now at two different paradigms, two different time periods when Western scholars and Muslims as well, but mostly Western scholars, were more interested in them because they're the ones who are actually asking the questions, being critical. Don't expect Muslims to be critical on this point. They just take it as verbatim that Uthman was the one that put it together. Uthman, and we have called the Western scholar paradigm the Noldekishwali paradigm, which points to the Uthmanic context or the Uthmanic compilation for the Quran. And so that's the name that Shoemaker gives. That's the name we'll run with for these episodes. But there's a new one that Shoemaker is now introducing, and that's, as you notice, as you mentioned, the Abdul Malik al-Hajjaj. It's a lot of words, but it's two men, really. Abdul Malik is the caliph. Al-Hajjaj is his governor in Iraq. Those are the ones that were given, that took upon themselves to actually create the Quran, the one that we have here, this book that we have here. Yeah. So that the Uthmanic would be 652. Now we're in the change between the 7th to 8th century. So let's just say 700. Let's just put 700 to make it easier for everybody. It's the turn of the century, going into the 8th century. And we're showing what Shoemaker does is he goes and he gives support from Christian sources. This is outside the tradition, therefore there is no need to hold with the narrative that is the standard narrative that we keep on talking about, because these guys actually predate that standard narrative. So that's why we can trust them more. And their material has not been eradicated. Their material has not been sublimated. Mm-hmm. Their material has not been destroyed because they're not within the Arab tradition. They're not within. See, Islam hasn't come to the fore yet, so I don't want to call it Islam.
Right, that's true. I mean, it was called like Hagarine, Ishmaelites.
Ishmaelites, like they're called Hagarines. They were called. They were also called Muhajiruns, which means people of the Hijr.
Right.
They are also called the Saracens. These are the names they give themselves. These Arabs. Mm-hmm. Now, we've already talked about John of Damascus, who was there in the courts with Abdul Malik. He is a eyewitness to this happening. This compilation by Abdul Malik and Al-Hajjaj. We also then talked about the Leo III, who had this, not a debate, but these letters back and forth. They're both from the 8th century, mid-8th century and late 8th century. We're now going to move into the 9th century. So we're quite a bit later now. We're almost 100 years later. And we have this guy named Abraham of Tiberious, and he is having a dialogue. He's a Melkite Christian, and he's having a dialogue with Emir Abd al-Rahman al-Hashimi in Jerusalem around 820. Mm-hmm. So we're now well into the 9th century, 20 years into the 9th century. 100 years later, this is long after Abdul Malik, long after Al-Hajjaj.
Yeah. May I just make a quick comment here? Al-Hashimi, it's kind of interesting because it ties into the Quraysh, actually, tribe. So, but you're saying it's north. That's interesting. The second thing I want to just make a quick comment to people. If you don't know that Al-Hajjaj made additions and corrections to the Quran, well, we're telling you that that's what Al-Hajjaj did, and that's why we're using that. And it's really interesting, Jay, that I've always wondered, how can anyone allow Al-Hajjaj to change the Quran? Because no one dares to change the Quran, but now we know why. He was part of the process of creating the Quran.
Exactly. And he was in authority. That's the big thing. He is directly under the auspices, under the authority of Abdul Malik himself. You can't get any bigger than Abdul Malik. And Abdul Malik can do whatever he wants. And remember, there was no religion called Islam this early. There were no people called Muslims this early. They were called Ishmaelites. So they really didn't have a theological tradition that they had to hold true to, but they did need a scripture. They did need a book in order to compete with the Jews and the Christians. So what Shoemaker says is in 820, you have this dialogue, and Abraham refers to the matter of the Quran's lineage. He seems to be well aware of the Islamic tradition's different accounts of the Quran's origins. So he's aware of this. He's aware of what they had been saying prior to this. He notes that following Muhammad's death, so he does refer to Muhammad because we're in the 9th century, Muhammad is well known by now. Remember, this is the Abbasid period. Muhammad was really created at the end of the Umayyad period, but really took hold and became their prophet during the Abbasid period from 749 on. We're in 820 now. And he talks about Muhammad's followers, and he even began to compile the words that he taught them. He then names a full range of various alleged instigators. And he gives the names of Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, Ali, and Ibn Abbas. So he's already aware of these names. These names are now common parlance. He even refers to Muawiyah in that list. But then he says this, following this list, Abraham then says, after them, so he's listing all these names, Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, Ali, Ibn Abbas, and Muawiyah. After them, so now we're full after them, it was Al-Hajjaj, he says, Ibn Yusuf, who composed and arranged the Qur'an. Proving right now that he is putting his money where he's pretty much saying, this is the man that we have to give credit to. So Shoemaker's conclusion is this. It is clear that the final composition and the edition of the Quran, according to this witness from the 9th century, was done by Al-Hajjaj. While others may have made earlier efforts to gather Muhammad's teaching together, it was Al-Hajjaj who produced the final authoritative version of the Islamic sacred text. That's what we're looking for. That's what we need. That's what we have. And now we're in the 9th century, and they're still saying this.
Wonderful.
Proof, if you need any more proof, from outside the Islamic sources, from outside any control by the Abbasids, you're getting this reference point, because he's not under the Abbasids, even though he's during the time of the Abbasids. That's why he gives lip service to these other names, because those are well known by this time. He is pointing it out. It's Al-Hajjaj that put together this book called the Qur'an.
Very well done. Thank you so much. Next time we're going to talk, I think, about Al-Kindi.
One more, in the 9th century.
Yes.
And he's pretty exciting.
Wonderful. And he is basically known also in terms of his apology and his debate that he has done. Well, folks, this will be the conclusion of this episode. We're doing it intentionally short, sweet, and straight to the point. Next time, as you've heard, we will be talking yet about another person who is late in the 8th century, who will also collaborate this paradigm, meaning Abdul Malik al-Hajjaj paradigm in terms of their creation of the Quran. Until next time, have a blessed day. Thank you for watching this video. Be sure to like and subscribe to our channel CIRA International and click on the bell so that you receive notifications whenever we publish a new video or go live. I would also like to appeal to you to consider becoming a Patreon patron by clicking the link right below. By doing so, you can give towards the production of these videos. There are also other options for you where you can give to our channel. I thank you from the bottom of my heart.